Welcome back to Gabbett Media, I'm Grant Abbott, and today we're going to be continuing our scene that you can see here. And today's episode is colouring in or shading, adding materials to our objects. We're going to be continuing on our man, and we're going to be going through the shader and shading workspace. Remember, this is all part of a much bigger course on gabbett.co.uk, where you can go right through from beginner to advanced levels, and all the courses are free. So let's begin. This is where we got to last time. And in order to add materials to this person, the best place to go is the shading workspace, if I click on that. So here we're in look dev mode in our 3D viewport here, and it's very bright at the moment, but that's because he's got white materials, so I'll zoom in on him there. We've got what's called the shader below us, and you can change these workspaces up in the corner here, and we're in the shader editor. We've also got the image editor over on the side here, the image editor. And we've got our file browser as well. Now we don't need either of these two because we're going to do very basic shading at the moment, but that's when you want to add images in as your textures. So I'm going to get rid of these two panels. If we go to the middle where two panels meet, our cursor changes to this and we can right click and join area. And that gives us this arrow and we can make this one go over that one. Same up here, wait till the cursor changes, right click, join area, move that arrow across and get rid of that one. So now we have our workspace and our shader editor down here. So let's add a material to our man's body. Remember, my shortcut keys are down the bottom here, and I've left clicked on the man's torso. So if any of you watched the very beginner's intro to the interface, you'll remember the principled shader. Don't worry if you haven't seen that, I'll go through it again. It looks very complicated, but at the very basic level, we've got the color up here. Don't worry about the subsurface color at the moment. You can make your objects metallic, you might want to do that. Usually it's non-metallic, which is 0, or 1, which is completely metallic. And can you see how it changed there? We've also got the roughness, which is how shiny it is. So if I go completely shiny, which is no roughness, you can see it's completely reflective, or I can go the other way where it's very rough. And that's affected by whether it's metal or not. So you've got a really plasticky look here with a shiny plastic. If I bring the roughness right up and move around a bit, you can see that sort of shiny plastic look. Or if I bring the metallic up to 1, it's got a very metallic shiny look, which looks really odd. So I bring the metallic back down to 0 and the roughness halfway up. And that's roughly where it was before. And for now, that's the only thing we're going to worry about. You can certainly have a play with these, but you're very plasticky look here with a shiny plastic. If I bring the roughness right up and move around a bit, you can see that sort of shiny plastic look. Or if I bring the metallic up to 1, it's got a very metallic shiny look, which looks really odd. So I bring the metallic back down to 0 and the roughness halfway up, and that's roughly where it was before. And for now, that's the only thing we're going to worry about. You can certainly have a play with these, but your main inputs will be the color, the metallic, and the roughness. Later on, if we want to make materials bumpy, we use the normal. So let's change this color to a blue color. We use the normal. So let's change this color to a blue color. So I'll drag across. Across to the blue, and I'll bring down the tone to somewhere around here. And in fact, I don't want to make it so bright blue, so I'm going to bring the hue into the middle more, and that makes it less saturated. The more you go to the outer parts of the ring, the more saturated it is. If you go to the middle, the less saturated, so you can see what's happening there. And of course, the tone is the kind of brightness of the image. So somewhere around there is great. And then move away from that, and it disappears. Now you'll notice how several of these shapes have changed color. That's because they're sharing this material at the top. I'm going to rename this material, so I'll click in this box and call it blue. And you'll notice how they're all sharing the blue material, so they all see that blue material. And the hands have no material at the moment, and all these other shapes that have just white, they've got no materials. So what I'm going to do, the arms can have the same colour as the torso, but we'll give him some different coloured trousers. So I'll click on one of these, and I want to create a new material. There's two ways. I can create a new material based on the old one. If I click this, add new material, it will keep it the same as the old one and call it blue 001. So that's the first way. I'll change this to dark blue and give him some darker trousers. So click on the color again, bring it right down, and maybe make them a bit more saturated. And I want the other leg to have the same material. At the moment it's sharing this blue material, so this one's got dark blue, which you can read there, and this one's got the blue material. If I want to change this material for this leg, I can click the down arrow over here and choose the dark blue. And now they both share that material. So any changes I make to this material, let's say I wanted some weird brownie coloured trousers, it changes both of them. So I'm going to put that back to my very dark blue, around there. I'm actually going to increase the roughness as well. Can you see how it's very reflective at the moment? And cloth isn't really reflective, so I can bring up the roughness to somewhere around 7 or 8, and that looks a lot better. I'm going to do the same for the blue, so I'll click on his shirt. Now I've got the blue material, I'll bring up the roughness there as well. So let's create a skin colour and change his face. So let's click on the face, and this time I'm not going to go to the add new, I'm going to delete this material from this object, not deleting the material entirely. So I'll delete the material from this object, and you can see his face goes white, and then add a new material. So that's a slightly different way of doing it. This time we'll create a skin tone, so base colour, and we'll go across to somewhere around here, where the skin tones are, perhaps a little bit darker, and somewhere in there. So I'm having a tiny bit of trouble getting to the spot that I want, so I can zoom in on the colour, and it makes this box bigger. There we go. So we've got some objects that are going to share that material. So the hands are going to share this material with the face. So if I click on the hands now, I can use this down arrow and choose material, because I forgot to rename it. So let's click on that, and I'm going to rename it skin. In fact, skin light, because the nose and the lips will have a darker colour. Now I can click on the other hand and obviously go down here and press skin light. But if I had loads of objects that I wanted to share the same colour as this hand, I can select all those objects with shift and then select the one I want to copy from last. So shift select the one you want to copy from, and that's highlighted a sort of yellowy colour where the other objects will all be orange. In fact, I will colour the torch the same colour just for the sake of an example. So we've got those two selected, and this one last, that's yellow, and these two are orange. And if I press Ctrl L, I can then link the materials. So make links, materials, and they'll share the same materials. I'll come back to the torch in a second, looks a bit odd at the moment, and I'll just create materials for each of the other objects. So the ears, I forgot about them. Select both those and select the skin or the face and press Ctrl L, link materials. And now your task is to add materials for the other parts except for the torch, because I'll go into that in a second. So it's all textured apart from the torch, and I feel like the mouth doesn't stick out enough. So if I wanted to change anything about my model, I can click on that mouth. Now I can edit this in the shading workspace, but I can easily go back to the layout where I've got full screen and I can change it easily there. Also, I've already got this set to solid shading, which makes it easier to see. And I can just scale this in the Y, scale, S then Y, to make that mouth a bit bigger. And I feel it's a little bit wide, so I'll scale in the X to make it shorter. Did you see how it's scaled from my pivot point, which is over the side here? So I'm going to have to grab it in the X and move that across just a touch. And then he looks a bit more shocked. And then I can go back to my shading mode and carry on with the shading. Don't worry if your colours don't match perfectly my outline down the bottom here, because these will change as we go to rendered view and add the lighting. So let's talk about the torch. So I click on the torch and I want two materials on here. I want an emission at the front here and a black texture for the body of the torch. So let's create the body of the torch first. So I'll just cross this one out and add a dark grey somewhere around there. And let's zoom in on this. So full stop on your numpad or period key on your numpad, or I'll just move away from that a second because some people are saying that's not working for them. If you alt middle click on a space, that will zoom your camera into it as well. So either full stop or period key on your numpad or alt middle click, and you can move in on objects with that as well. So our torch has changed, but we need to change this front area here. There's two ways of doing this. We can make the front area a separate object, and that's possibly the better and more efficient way because it's easier to change afterwards. But I will possibly the better and more efficient way because it's easier to change this front area here. There's two ways of doing this. We can make the front area a separate object, and that's possibly the better and more efficient way because it's easier to change afterwards. But I will show you how you can add different materials, so two or more materials to one object. Let's go into edit mode with tab on my keyboard, and that brings up edit mode here. I'm already in face mode. Now have a think, how do I